welcome to Are You Ready? My name is Randy Major. I'll be your host today. And joining me today is founder and president of Asset Guard, Mike Carpenter. Hi, Mike.
How are you doing today?
I'm so good. So glad to be back with you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to playing a little golf now the weather's getting nicer.
Oh, yes, it is. Love springtime.
Yep.
It's in the air finally.
Unfortunately, so is the pollen.
Oh, yes. It's always a problem. There's always a catch, isn't there?
Yep.
Speaking of there always being a catch, let's talk a little bit today about retirement back then and how it looks today. Boy, has it changed a lot.
It certainly has. Back in the day, our parents or grandparents relied heavily on pensions. It was a defined benefit package that they knew when they retired that they were going to have guaranteed payment through their whole life. Now, unlike now where the average Social Security is about $1,500, and many, because of higher incomes, are looking to almost $4,000 Social Security payments just on a single life. But back in the 60s or 70s, the average Social Security was much, much less. $600, $700, $800, but they were completely relying on that pension to pay them out the rest of their life.
So what happened? Where did the pension go?
Well, these companies realized that it was very costly to maintain these pension programs. And in the 70s, they started figuring out how can we make a change. And they created the IRA programs, they created 401ks, and they put the burden on the individual to now save.
Right. So these are avenues that, of course, they still work, they still produce incomes, and we can still retire. However, like you said, it's our burden. We have to be armed with knowledge in order to do that successfully.
And of course, the other big issue is back in the 60s and 70s, that generation was a generation of savers. They weren't the consumptive buyers that we are now. So their spending habits were far different and much more conservative. And back in the 70s and 80s, especially the early 80s, the savings rates at banks and CDs was phenomenal. I know you're a little bit young and you wouldn't remember, but back in the 70s, 80s, it wasn't uncommon for very strong double digits returns in a CD.
Right.
And there was also a lot of other problems with that, which we can get into another show. But those strong savings that were in a guaranteed situation, whether it was a 6-month, 1-year, 3-year, 5-year jumbo CD, they had their pension, they had their small Social Security, but they knew that they had that safe CD just growing like wildfire.
And so now what happened to the CDs? And I don't really even hear of those anymore.
Well, that would take several programs to go over what the Federal Reserve has done in controlling the interest rate environment. I remember buying my first house in 1981. Now, everyone was getting 15, 16, 17% interest on a CD. Well, unfortunately, that year in 1981, November, I still remember signing my first mortgage payments and seeing 11 7/8 was the loan. I walked out of there and I felt good. Why? Because the actual mortgage rates at the time were 19%. So we really don't want to see strong CD rates because everything else is going to be double digit. Unemployment, inflation, it was very, very bad. And it caused problems in the Social Security situation as well, which is why, things are going on with Social Security. We'll cover that in the next show.
Right. We're going to talk more about Social Security in next week's show. But let's get back to retiring then versus today. So yes, it was a little more simple. We also, folks were living in a time where they spent 30 years with the same company. Now we are changing jobs, careers, and workplaces very often.
My father-in-law worked for an agency, which I can't tell you what it was, but for 43 years he went into work every day and came home every day at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and my wife's family didn't really know what he ever did, but he had that government pension that went to him as well as my mother-in-law, and ultimately when he passed away, that was gone. One of the biggest problems with pensions is a lot of times the wrong pension choice. When you get ready to retire, you're just looking forward to retiring and enjoying your life. and the company will send you this packet of information, say you need to choose. And they don't give you any direction. They'll give you 2 or 3, sometimes 10 pages to go through, and so you have to do this before you retire. And the most common mistake is that people choose the wrong option for their pension.
Now, if you choose the wrong option, for those of you who are still lucky enough to be receiving a pension, what happens? Can it be reversed? Can you have a redo?
No, it's irrevocable. And to give you one example, I had some folks that moved down from New York, and he had a very good income up there and retired up there, and they came to one of our workshops, and when they came in and I analyzed everything in that financial MRI I've talked about, and he had $6,000 worth of income between his pension and his Social Security. And obviously the cost of living in North Carolina is a lot less than New York. But his biggest problem is he took a life-only pension, which means when he passes away, his wife will go from having $6,000 of guaranteed income coming in to $1,800 because she loses her Social Security. She'll get the higher of the 2 Social Securities, which is his, and all of his pension is gone. It goes to the grave with him.
Mike, that's terrible.
Well, that's the way it worked.
Oh my goodness.
But it's irreversible once you start it.
And there's no one there in companies that are guiding these folks on what
Generally
to do.
not.
They just kind of make you choose as soon as possible.
Many times I have clients come in and they said, Mike, I got all these papers. Can you help me make a decision? And that's where we go to our financial MRI to run the numbers so we make a mathematical decision, not an emotional decision that says, hey, let's get the biggest amount.
Yeah.
That probably isn't the right thing to do.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the portfolio MRI because we have to take our first commercial break, and I'd love for you to tell the viewers the special offer you have for them today to come on in and receive an MRI from you.
If you call 844-546-1009 and set an appointment to come in and bring anything that you want, your pension papers, your Social Security benefit statement, anything that you want to discuss, we'll put it in our financial MRI and give you that report so that you know exactly what's going on, and hopefully that red line's not going to show up.
Thank you so much, Mike. To the viewers at home, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to come back with much more on the differences between retirement then and retirement today. So we encourage you to stay tuned. In the meantime, the phone lines are now open. So we encourage you to call us. That number is on your screen. It's 844-546-1009. Call in right now. The first 10 callers are going to receive their consultation with Mike completely complimentary. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
A good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
And welcome back to Are You Ready? I'm your host, Randy Major. Joining me today is President and founder of Asset Guard, Mike Carpenter. Mike, we're having a great show today talking about the differences of retiring back then when pensions were abundant and it was just a little bit easier. And now we're going to discuss a little bit more about how we create the retirement today without, many folks don't have a pension anymore. So let's talk about that.
Well, one of the biggest mistakes people make is they really are not using an advisor who actually does income planning. They might call up HR and say, what do I need to do? Well, the HR people really don't know. They have a manual that they're reading in. And they can tell you when you can take your vacation and this and that, but they can't offer you investment advice. And knowing how much you need to save, you need to know other things about your expenses in the future and how much you're going to need to have in a nest egg whenever you do retire.
Absolutely. And where are we creating this income that needs to last us, quite a lot longer? Also, we're living a lot longer, so our retirement is, it needs to last us.
Well, if you're fortunate to work for a company that has a 401k or a 403b or a 457, there's a lot of different what they call qualified plans where you can save money and get a tax deduction. And many times a company, if they're profitable, is going to give you a matching contribution. Now, during the pandemic, we've had a lot of companies go through issues where they weren't making the profit and they weren't, they had stopped their matches. Some have picked back up doing that. Some are more favorable than others. Usually you might find a 3% match or something like that. But the reality is, if you don't know how much you're going to need in retirement with your expenses, how you're going to enjoy it financially, how do you know how much to save now? And of course, many 401ks now have a Roth option in them, which doesn't give you any tax benefit now, but will give you tremendous tax benefits later on.
Now, you mentioned the 401k and maybe not giving as much, but is it possible even, in uncertain times like we experienced in the pandemic, that something could happen to your 401k? Is that a possibility?
Yes. I mean, especially, and I've been in the business for a long time, so I've seen clients go through the 2000, 2002 decline because of the tech bubble, then the 2007 to 2009 mortgage bubble. And they'd come in with 401k statements that had lost 30, 40, 50%. And they're saying, what do I do? Because you can't just move the money out of there. You have to know what options are inside that 401k. And so we'll help them analyze what to do with that. But again, they have to be working with somebody that's proactive. Because in most cases, they're reactive to something that's happened. And during this recent downturn that we had because of the war, I have a list of people that have 401ks and they, are dollar cost averaging, and that's always good to do while you're working. But on that lump sum of money that's in there, you've got to protect it. The closer you are to retirement, what they call that red zone, sometimes it's 5, 10, whatever it is, it's all different. But you've got to protect that lump sum that's inside the 401k.
I mean, 40, 50%, you're talking about a significant number here.
Yes, it's a game changer. Just imagine in October of 2007, you had just retired after 40 years of working. September was your first full month of retirement, and you're enjoying, you're looking forward to the fall colors and getting out, and you wake up in October and you see this S&P starting to tick down and tick down and tick down all the way to March 9th of 2009, where it bottomed out.
Yeah.
And many people saw their 401ks get hit as much as 50%. And it's going to take a long time for that money. You have to gain 100% interest to break even.
So what do you do? If you're already retired, how do you make that up?
Well, we then sit down and say, okay, let's take a look at your options. The annuities might be an option. There's multiple options that are out there. I like to use, safe vehicles, because when you're in retirement, you cannot afford any losses. That's why we named the company Asset Guard. We don't want you to experience any losses. We want you to sleep good every night,
Yes.
not worrying, because we're living in a global economy. So you can go to bed at night, everything's okay in the world. You wake up in the morning and someone shot off a rocket here, or an oil rig is blown up there, or a tsunami is hit here. And all these things impact world markets. And if your
Yes.
money's at risk, you're going to ride it down, and then you're going to have to tighten your belt.
Yeah. So you're saying once you're in that red zone, it's time to really make sure you're meeting with somebody, protecting what you've saved, and taking less risk.
That's right. I mean, we want to take as much risk off the table. And I typically, when someone comes in, I'll ask a question. There's two questions on it. What's your reasonable rate of return you like to get in retirement? And I won't tell you the number they give me, but the second question, and this is really the indicator, is how much money are you willing to lose in retirement in order to attain all of the dreams that you have?
I
And
wouldn't
usually
wanna lose any.
usually that number is zero.
Right. I would hope not. So what are some of the biggest mistakes that folks make when they're approaching their retirement today?
Well, the biggest one is this procrastination. They're not dealing with somebody who understands the distribution stage of your assets. From 25 to 55 or 65, that's the accumulation stage. And you're dollar cost averaging, you're pumping money in, and you're buying things high and low, and that's what dollar cost averaging is. But when you get to retirement, this is now the distribution stage.
Right.
And
This is where it
the
gets
number
tricky.
one chart that I show them is a sequence of return chart. And that really opens their eyes, because they think when they retire, hey, I've got this wad of money and I'm just going to live off interest my whole life and not touch the principal. It doesn't work that way.
And how far, we were talking before the show a little bit about this, and you had said in today's world, you really have to start thinking about this way earlier than you think you need to. I'm approaching 43 in a couple months. Do I need to come in and meet with you now?
You sure do. You can call 844-546-1009 and set an appointment. But no, you seriously do need to sit down with somebody and understand just a couple numbers. If you were retired today and you had no debt, you didn't know anything on a mortgage or cars, credit cards, how much would it take for you and your husband to enjoy your life? And when you know that number, then I can start building backwards and say, okay, this is how much you need to save, because most people don't calculate. In their mind, they're thinking, I can just live off the interest, but they're not calculating the inflation factor.
Right, and that is huge. We're all seeing it right now.
It's major.
Yeah, so we have to go to a commercial break now, Mike. And ladies and gentlemen at home, thank you so much for watching. We're going to take a very short commercial break. I'm going to have Mike remind you of the special offer he has for you today.
Call 844-546-1009 for your financial MRI.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to come right back with some really great viewer questions you're not going to want to miss. So please stay tuned. Again, that number is on your screen. It's 844-546-1009. Pick up the phone right now and give us a call. You can secure your complimentary MRI consultation with Mike and get your retirement on the right track today. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
When was the last time you saw your financial professional? Are you getting the most out of the strategy that was created for you? Although you've done a great job finding someone to help plan for your future, are you 100% sure that you were given the right strategy? We can help answer these questions and more with a complimentary second opinion evaluation. We will take a look at what you have in place and then help determine if you're well positioned to get the most out of your future retirement income. In the event that it is not, we can help by making suggestions and showing you how to get on the right path. You wouldn't get just one opinion when it comes to a major health decision, so why would you treat your most important financial decision with such disregard? Call today for your no-cost, no-obligation second opinion evaluation to see if you're getting the most out of your retirement income plan.
And welcome back to Are You Ready? And are you ready? It's time to know now, right? If your retirement isn't on the right track, if you are not ready to really fulfill those years the way you want to, then I really encourage you to pick up the phone and call. And we're going to get to some viewer questions because the phone lines have been very busy and we are receiving a lot of phone calls to book appointments and asking some questions. So let's get to some of those now. Okay, so the first one we have is from Mary, and she's in Graham. Over the last year, we as a country have printed billions of dollars, increasing our federal debt substantially. Where do you think taxes will go from here?
Well, that number is actually over $30 trillion now. And for every American taxpayer, because there's a lot of Americans that earn a living and pay no taxes, at least income taxes. So that number is 200,000 plus for each taxpayer to pay off the debt. So if they ever do address trying to pay the debt down, there's two ways they can do it. One is stop spending or reduce the spending, but the most likely way is to increase taxes. To give you an example, this isn't income tax, but everyone that earns a living pays Social Security tax. Well, Social Security FICA tax, the amount of money they withhold from your check each and every week or however often you're paid, has not been raised since 1990. That's 32 years. So as they begin to try to fix the Social Security problem, let alone the debt problem, I think that's one of the first tax increases you're going to see.
Okay. Yeah, it's inevitable, right?
Yes.
All right, let's take another one. This one's from Jane from Midway. Since my husband passed away, my taxes have gone up without my income increasing. Why is that?
Well, I wish I had a chart to show you the different tax brackets for single and married. In her case, the reason that's happened, she still has a good amount of income coming in, I would assume, which is why her tax situation, but she's now filing as a single. When you lose a spouse, in the year that they pass away, you can take the marriage deduction, and the following year you can take a marriage deduction. But in that third year, you're now on your own filing as a single.
Okay, so filing as a single, the taxes are more.
Yes.
Okay.
And we help clients prepare for that because we know there's two things that are certain, death and taxes. And we help prepare you for both of them.
Okay. Next question is coming from Bob, and he's in Bermuda Run. Bob says, can I transfer my IRA to my children without a negative tax consequence?
No, it'd be pretty major, because if you transferred your IRA to your children while you're alive, it's going to create a massive tax consequence for yourself. You know, once that's done, you can pass the money on to your kids, but it won't then be an IRA in any way. If you were going to do that, we would look at doing a Roth conversion, and then you can pass on the Roth at your death. And of course, at any time, you can give money to your children. A lot of people think about the gift tax exclusions and things like that, and you can give more than $15,000 a year away to a child or grandchild or to anybody. You just need to understand what forms you would need to file in order to do that.
Okay, so you can do that without paying taxes.
Well, no, because if you're giving away money that's coming from an IRA, you're always going to be paying taxes. Now, the situation also is that the majority of people out there, the money they've saved in either IRAs or 401ks is always taxable income in their lifetime. And based on their other income sources will determine what their tax bracket is.
So the Roth conversion allows you to do that and not pay taxes on it now?
Well, you'd pay the tax on the conversion. But if it's your objective to give as much of your money away before you die, we have to look at that and what does that really look like? And does it make sense to do it? Because we always do it mathematically. We don't want you making an emotional decision. I have clients all the time that come to me and said, my son or daughter, they need X amount of dollars, to do whatever, whether it's buying a car or helping them get into a house, which is becoming more and more difficult with today's housing market environment.
Yes.
But that's why I tell my clients, you have any financial question, no matter how simple it is, you call me, we put it
Yes.
in the financial MRI in order to get the actual results.
So important to meet with a professional before making any financial decisions,
Yes.
now more than ever. Not something you should be Googling or getting advice from the neighbor.
No.
Really, this is your nest egg, what you've built, what you've worked so hard for your entire life. It's really important to get in
Yes.
and seek the help of a professional.
Yep.
Well, I think we have time for one more quick question. This one's from Steve in North Davidson. What is the worst debt a retiree can have going into retirement? Would that be credit cards?
It could be. The answer is really have no debt. I commonly see clients coming in that have just gotten into a new 30-year mortgage at 62 or 65. And that can be devastation because you really can't write that interest off anymore because the standard deduction changes. But no debt is good debt.
Good advice. That's good advice. Okay, folks, we're already at the end of the show. We just talked about the differences between retiring then and retiring now. It's a whole different ball game now. It's why you should come in and see Mike, and you can do that today completely complimentary. Mike has a very special offer for you to come on in and get, you call it a
Financial MRI.
a financial MRI, where Mike is really going to dive in deep and look at everything you have. And please don't be intimidated. The whole purpose of this is for you to gain peace of mind and make sure you're living your retirement years with a purpose, the way you want to, the way you've dreamed of. Mike, I want to thank you so much for taking time to be here today. I know how busy you are. And to the viewers at home, we thank you so much for spending time with us. We hope you will join us next week. I know we have a show coming up about Social Security
Yep.
and long-term care that
Yes.
we're going to discuss.
Yep.
And then we're going to be having Darlene back on the show too, which will be really fun. Okay, well, we hope you join us next week right here, same time. That number to call is on your screen. It's 844-546-1009. Again, it's 844-546-1009. Those phone lines are open. Don't miss out.